My name is Nora Hale, and I am 30 years old. The night my father turned me into a joke online. He did it with a smile like he was proud of himself. His Facebook post went up at 8:14 at night. The 30-year-old leech is finally gone. No more cooking her meals. By 8:20 at night, it had exploded. Laughing reactions from neighbors, old classmates, people from church, people who had not spoken to me in years but suddenly had jokes ready. My brother Evan tagged his friends and wrote, "Warning, this is your future. If you date dead weight." Comment after comment tried to shrink me into the version of me they had been selling for years. I read each one slowly. Then I did the one thing that confused them later. I did not argue. I did not cry in the comments. I did not beg them to take it down. I screenshotted every post, every caption, every tag, every laughing emoji. Then I liked each one. After that, I sealed my last box, carried it past the kitchen where nobody bothered to look ashamed, and walked out with a smile they mistook for weakness. They truly believed their own story about me. They had repeated it for so long it hardened into family folklore. Nora sleeps late. Nora stares at screens all night. Nora does not have a real job. Nora contributes nothing. Nora eats everyone else's food. Nora is too sensitive. Nora is lucky we tolerate her. What they never cared enough to ask was what I was actually doing behind those blackout curtains with 3 monitors glowing until dawn. I worked nights for a healthcare cybersecurity firm in Columbus, handling breach response for hospital systems across multiple states. When ransomware locked up an emergency department at 2 a.m, my team was the one on the bridge call. When patient records were exposed, I was tracing intrusion points, documenting timelines, walking nervous administrators through containment, writing reports precise enough to survive lawsuits. It paid well. I kept it quiet because explaining tech to people who already decided you are a punchline is a waste of breath. My father ran a struggling motorcycle repair shop behind our house. My mother floated between part-time jobs and long stretches of resentment. Evan treated adulthood like a prank somebody else would clean up. Years earlier, when my grandmother Elsie got sick, I was the one who took her to appointments, managed her medications, and sat beside her during the nights when she was too proud to admit she was scared. Nobody else had the patience. Dad said hospitals made him uncomfortable. Mom said she could not stand the smell. Evan said he had a life. Grandma noticed everything. Who showed up? Who disappeared? Who only called when they needed money? After she died, everyone assumed the legal paperwork would sort itself out the way it always had in our family. Through yelling, entitlement, and the loudest person grabbing whatever they could. They were wrong. There were documents in a fireproof box with my name on them, and signatures nobody bothered to think about because they never imagined paperwork could matter more than volume. I stayed in that house longer than I should have for one reason. I promised Grandma Elsie I would keep things stable until I could leave cleanly. So I covered gaps, mortgage shortfalls, insurance renewals, utility balances, quiet emergencies. I did it without applause, without gratitude, and eventually without love. By the time Dad made that post, I had already signed a lease for a converted brick loft, set up movers, transferred my mail, and decided that whatever happened next, I would not defend myself to people who needed me broken in order to feel bigger. They thought they were celebrating the eviction of a burden. In reality, they were cheering the exit of the person holding the floor up underneath them. I got to my new place just after midnight. 3rd floor of an old warehouse converted into apartments. Exposed brick, steel-framed windows, floors that creaked in honest ways, not accusing ones. It was not glamorous, but it was mine. I set my keys on the counter, turned on the kitchen light, and stood there in the silence long enough to realize I had never actually lived in a place where quiet felt safe. I should have cried from relief. Instead, I opened Facebook again. Dad's post had climbed higher. Neighbors were tagging cousins. Former classmates were dropping in with fake concern dressed as humor. Someone from church wrote, "Tough love works." Another wrote, "At least she is gone before 40. Evan made a second post using an old photo of me in oversized pajamas carrying groceries from the car. Rare footage of the basement daughter in the wild. Hundreds of reactions. I screenshotted that too and saved everything in 3 places. The next morning, I made coffee and opened the spreadsheet I had maintained for almost 4 years. Every household account tied to my name or my logins was listed there. The mortgage portal, the commercial liability policy for Dad's shop, water, is gas, internet, county property tax reminders, the payment plan I negotiated when Dad fell behind on business taxes. I stared at it and felt something colder than anger settle into place. Not revenge. Math. I changed passwords that were mine. I removed my bank account from every auto draft. I emailed the insurance broker and stated I would no longer be the contact for any Hale family personal or business policies. I notified the mortgage servicer that future notices should go to the occupying parties listed on file. Then I scheduled a meeting with the attorney who handled my grandmother's estate. Around 4 in the afternoon, my email pinged with the first automated warning. Commercial liability policy pending lapse. Payment not received. A few minutes later, another alert hit. Mortgage draft unsuccessful. Please update payment method. For years, those alerts made my stomach drop, because I knew I would have to fix them before Dad noticed. Before Mom spiraled. Before Evan promised he would handle it later and then disappeared. That afternoon, for the first time, I felt no urgency at all. Only one thought. They did not value me. They valued the labor I kept invisible. 2 days later, I sat across from attorney Maren Cole. The estate attorney my grandmother trusted more than most blood relatives. Her office smelled like paper and old wood. The kind of room where feelings lose arguments to signatures. She slid a thick folder across the desk and tapped the tab with my name. You delayed this longer than necessary, she said, not unkindly. I know why, but delay does not change the terms. Grandma Elsie owned the house outright long before my father ever pretended it was his kingdom. When Dad's shop nearly collapsed after a bad expansion loan, Grandma saved it, then placed both the family house and the shop land into a living trust. In the trust documents, she named me successor, trustee, and primary decision-maker the day after her death. Dad and Mom were granted occupancy of the house and a reduced use arrangement for the shop property, but only under conditions. Stay current on utilities and taxes. Maintain insurance. Avoid conduct that harasses the trustee or jeopardizes assets. Acknowledge in writing that their right to stay was a revocable license. Not ownership. They signed it. Every page. Probably without reading. Maren turned her monitor toward me and showed me the clause I had avoided invoking. Public harassment. Defamation. Or targeted humiliation of the trustee by an occupying beneficiary constitutes hostile interference and may trigger immediate review and termination of occupancy. My father's post was not just cruel. It was reckless. It publicly named me, portrayed me as dependent, invited ridicule, and created a documented pattern tied directly to the acting trustee. Maren looked at my screenshots and said, "This is enough." She asked for my authorization. I stared at the clause, then at my screenshots, then at my own hands. Calm hands, working hands, hands that did not shake in a crisis call at 2 in the morning. Do it, I said. Maren drafted notices that afternoon. 30 days to vacate the house. Immediate suspension of the shop's reduced use arrangement pending proof of insurance. Compliance. And independent lease qualification. We also prepared a demand regarding online harassment, removal of defamatory posts, preservation of evidence, and no direct contact outside counsel for matters concerning the trust. If your family made you a joke online, would you clap back publicly? Or stay quiet and collect receipts first? Comment, clap back, or receipts. By evening, certified notices were queued and the process server was scheduled. My phone started buzzing with that energy families mistake for love when they sense resources slipping out of reach. Aunt Denise left a voicemail in that syrupy tone relatives use when they want your compliance gift wrapped as concern. "Honey, call me back. Your dad is upset and your mother is confused. I am sure this is a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. I did not call her back. Evan texted, "What did you do?" Dad says some lawyer letter came. If this is a joke, knock it off. 5 minutes later, answer me. Then, you can't kick us out of our own house. Our own house. They believed that completely. Contempt makes people sloppy. The process server reached the house on a Thursday at 10:17 in the morning. I know the time because Marin's office sent confirmation. And because at 10:19 in the morning, my phone lit up like a fire alarm. Dad called first. Then Mom. Then Evan. Then Denise. Then Dad again. Then Mom 3 times in a row. Followed by a text that simply said, "Nora, pick up right now." I let the calls ring while I joined a breach containment call for a rural hospital whose scheduling system had just been hit with malware. At 11:03 in the morning, Evan left a voicemail full of rage. "You psycho. Dad says this letter says the house isn't ours. Mom's crying. Call me before I come over there." I saved it. At 11:22 in the morning, Mom switched strategies. Her texts came in fragments. "We didn't know." Then, "Your father was joking." Then, "How could you do this to family?" Dad's confused voicemail arrived at 11:40 in the morning. He sounded less furious than stunned. "Nora, call me. Marin Cole is saying the trust owns the house and the garage lot. That can't be right. Your grandmother would never cut me out. There was no mistake. Grandma did not cut him out. She documented him accurately. If they started calling the second consequences hit, would you pick up and explain? Or stay silent and let them sit in it?" Comment: pick up or stay silent. By afternoon, the word began moving through town. Dad's post was still up, but the comments turned strange. Someone wrote, "Maybe don't mock people online when you don't know whose name is on the paperwork." Dad deleted that comment. Then the entire post disappeared. Too late. Screenshots are forever. And the internet is only funny until it starts keeping receipts. At 9:14 at night, Mom left the message that finally made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it revealed everything. "Nora Offit, please, we can't lose the house. Your father says the shop is done if we lose that lot. Evan says he can't make his truck payment if the shop shuts down. You know, we need you. Please stop this. Need? Not sorry. Need." I agreed to one meeting. Only because Marin insisted it would strengthen the record if I offered a final formal chance for discussion with counsel present. We met the next Monday in her conference room. Not at the house. I refused to walk back into that place as a daughter expected to absorb emotion and clean up mess. Dad arrived first. Angry and loud. Mom came in with red-rimmed eyes. Evan slouched in last. Jaw tight. Aunt Denise came too. Marin was already seated when I entered. I took the chair across from them, set a black folder on the table, and watched all 4 faces shift. Dad started immediately. "This has gone far enough. Whatever legal games you and Marin are playing, they stopped today. You embarrassed this family. You posted me for public sport." I said, "Don't use the word embarrassed like you don't know where it started." Mom tried. "We were upset. You just left." "No," I said. "I left after years of being used and insulted in the house I was legally maintaining for you." I slid the first sheet toward them. Dad's post. Then Mom's photo of my empty room with her caption about peace at last. Then Evan's post. Then the comments. I read a few aloud. Clearly, cruelty sounds different when you drag it out of a screen and put it on a table. Then I laid out the payment records. Mortgage deficits I covered. Insurance renewals I handled. Tax notices I resolved. Utility arrears I paid. Permit reminders for the shop. A spreadsheet summary. Years of quiet labor translated into columns and dates. Dad stared at the pages like they were written in a language he always mocked and suddenly needed. Evan went pale. Mom kept whispering, "I didn't know," as if ignorance were a defense instead of a confession. Marin summarized the trust. The occupancy license. The revocation conditions. The harassment clause. The insurance lapse. And the timeline for vacating if no negotiated exit was reached. Dad tried bluster. My mother would never do this. Marin slid the notarized trust amendment across the table in Grandma Elsie's careful signature. She did, Marin said. Specifically because she anticipated this pattern. Dad slumped back. And for the first time I saw him without the shield of volume. Just a man who mistook dependence for authority. Evan looked at me. Humiliated. So you've been secretly acting better than us this whole time? No, I said. I have been secretly preventing your life from collapsing while you all called me useless. Mom reached for the tissue box. Nora, families fight. You can't destroy us over a post. I'm not destroying you over a post, I said. I'm refusing to keep saving people who publicly degrade me. Dad's voice dropped. What do you want? I want distance, I said. I want the property vacated on schedule. I want no direct contact outside what the attorney permits. I want every copied post and repost removed. I stood up, pulled a single house key from my wallet, and placed it on the table in front of my father. Grandma gave me that house to protect, I said. I did, just not in the way you expected. Then I left before tears turned into negotiation. 30 days later, the house was empty. The garage lot reverted fully under trust management, and I chose not to renew any family use arrangement. I walked through the house once after they left. My old room still smelled faintly of fresh paint and stale ego. I looked at the recliner they dragged in to celebrate my absence, and I felt nothing that resembled loss, just clarity. If you want more real stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next one will hit even harder.